Hey guys, so this video is another step in our solving quadratic equations, and it's solving trinomials or quadratics with three terms that with a not equal 1. So last lesson we learned how to solve a trinomial that is x squared plus bx plus c. In this case, we're going to learn that now there's going to be an a in there, which causes us to follow a slightly different procedure. Adds one more step in our procedure. So by the end of this video, we're going to be able to solve when there is a coefficient or a number in front of that x squared term. So the notes on this start off with two of these. So you notice that they're not equal signs; they're just factor it. Okay. So what we have to recognize is there is a procedure for this. Okay, and you might want to write these steps down. So the first step in this is to multiply a and c. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 2 times 18. And I'm going to get 36, okay? So that's my first step in this, okay? That's the m, okay? And then I find the factors of that 36, just like I did before when I looked at just the c. Now when there's an a in the c, I have to multiply this, and then I have to look at for the factors. So how do I get 36? Well, 1 and 36, 2 and 18, how I did the A and C, 3 and 12, 4 and 9. Okay? So then the second step is I choose the factors that add to the B term, just like we did before, where I figure out, okay, what of this list is going to add to the B term? Well, that 3 and 12. Next step is I replace these factors in for that 15x. So I would start off with 2x squared plus 3x plus 12x plus 18. So now I factor by grouping and then I solve. So this is just going back to that same procedure that we talked about before. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So now I'm here. So now I'm going to factor by grouping. So I'm going to group the first two terms and the second two terms. I'm going to look for what's common. In this case, only an x is common. So I'm left with 2x plus 3. The next, I see a 12 and an 18. What's common in there? Well, that would be a 6. What's left? 2x plus 3. So these two parentheses are the same. So now I can combine 2x plus 6 and 2x plus 3. You notice now that the x terms have a number in front of them. That's what creates the a. Okay. To go through this procedure again, let's look at example 2. So, the first step, multiply 3 times negative 18. So the first step. M is multiply. Okay? I'm going to get negative 54. Now I figure out what numbers are going to multiply to negative 54. Well, there's 1 and 54. It's going to be 2 and 27. 3 and 18. 4 does not go into it evenly. 5 does not go into it evenly. 6 and 9. 7 doesn't go in. 8 doesn't go in. 9 we already have. So this is my list of factors. Now I need to figure out, okay, what's going to add to the middle term? Well, number one, if this is a negative 54, one of these has to be negative. To determine which one needs to be negative, I'm going to look at the b term. My b term is -3, which means when I add these together, I need to get to a negative. So the bigger number has to be negative. So I'm going to make each bigger number negative. Now when I add them up, I notice that 6 and -9, those are going to be my factors that I want. So I'm going to take this, and after I've added the factors together, okay, so m is multiply, a is the adding the factors together to figure out what adds to that middle term. I'm going to replace these two terms for the middle term. 3x squared plus 6x minus 9x minus 18. And then I'm going to factor by grouping. What's common in these? Well, a 3x. What's left? X plus 2. What's common here? A -9. Now you got x plus 2. Because remember, when I factor out a negative, both those signs change. So really, when I factor this out, it comes out to be 3x minus 9 times x plus 2. Alright, so that's how I factored that out. So the next step is actually the solving piece. So you'll notice that we have this equation here. Now you notice that there's an equal sign. So the first thing I have to do in everything is to get this equal to 0. So when I equal this to 0, I generally want my x squared to be positive, okay, which it is, 12x squared. And I don't care about any of the other signs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2 and add 2x to both sides. That's going to move these two terms over to the other side. So now it equals 0. So now I do, well, the 12x squared doesn't have a like term. 2x and 3x, that's going to be 5x. And then this is going to be minus 2 because there's no other term and these cancel out. So now I can factor. So the first step is to multiply. So I do 12 times -2, I get -24. Well then, I have to find my factors and add them. Add the factors. Okay, well how do I get 24? 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 6 and 4. Well, I am looking for a -24 that adds to a +5. So, to have one of these negative and get a +5 here, the smaller number needs to be negative. So, when I add these up, the two factors that add up to a +5 are -3 plus 8. So then I replace that as the middle term. So 12x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 2 equals 0. Now I factor by grouping. What's common in here? A 3x. I'm left with 4x minus, oh, I factored out this 3x. So that's a 1. What's common in here? A 2. What's left? A 4x minus 1 equals 0. Now when I combine them, I have 3x plus 2 times 4x minus 1 equals 0. So now, using that zero product property, I have to split this. So I have to do 3x plus 2 equals 0 and 4x minus 1 equals 0 because I always have two results. So after I solve this, I'm going to get a grand result of x equals negative 2/3 or x equals 1/4. And I would just leave it as those fractions right now. You don't have to do that division. So the only step after that is the factoring, is that I have to remember once it's equal to 0, I have to split it into the two cases. Okay? So the only add-on to this is word problems. So I give you a picture and a situation. Okay? A rectangle with an area of 24 square inches is formed by cutting strips of equal width from a rectangular piece of paper. Find the dimensions of the new rectangle if the original rectangle measures 8 inches by 6 inches. So, what is the question saying? I originally have a piece of paper, and then I cut off edges, okay? And I have to make sure that each edge I cut off the same amount in each edge. So, it also says that this area of the shaded area is 24 square inches. So, the first thing you have to say is, all right, what is the question asking me? The question asking me is, okay, find the dimensions of the new rectangle. That's what it's asking. Okay, so it's asking how long is this and how long is this. Okay, what don't I know in this problem? Well, I don't know what x is. Okay, so there's one variable I don't know. Every time you hear the word area, I have to think, area of a rectangle. Length times width, right? That's a formula I know. Okay, every time you hear area, you gotta remember length times width. So now, what's my process? Well, the first thing is, I gotta figure out what my A, L, and W are. And I'm finding that based on the shaded triangle, or a shaded rectangle, not the original. I know the original, okay? So, let's look. How long is this side here? Well, it's a vertical piece, right? So I'm going to look. Well, it's not 6 inches, right? Because I cut off a little bit, okay? So this little piece, this little vertical piece here, is really that 6 inches minus this x minus this x. Because I cut off 2 x's on both sides. So this piece right here is really 6 minus 2x. I can do the same thing for the horizontal piece. Well, it's not 8 because I cut off x's on both sides. So really this is 8 minus 2. Okay, so I found my length, I found my width. What's my area? Well, it tells me my area is 24 square inches. Okay, so I'm going to take that stuff and I'm going to plug it into my area formula. 24 equals my length, 8 minus 2x, times my width, 6 minus 2x. Okay, how does that give me anyway? Well, the first thing I need to notice is it's an equation, so I have to solve it. How do I solve it? You have to remember now, I have to distribute. So, I'm going to distribute both of these in. I'm going to create a quadratic equation. So, 8 times 6, I haven't done anything with 24 yet. 8 times 6 is 48, minus 16x. Then I do the negative 2 times the 6, minus 12x, plus 4x squared. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. 24 equals 48 minus 28x plus 4x squared. Well, this doesn't look right because I can't solve this, right? So, first off, I have to get equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. I'm going to get 0 equals 24 minus 28x plus 4x squared. Well, we're not used to seeing it in this order at all. So let's rearrange it. We can always rearrange it into something that we know. So typically we always start off with our x squared term. So it's a positive 4x squared minus a 28x plus 24 equals 0. Now I get to factor. Well, one of the key terms in this is I can use that MARF technique, the multiplying A and C, the adding the factors together, the factoring by grouping, and then solving it that way. Or I can look at this and say, well, I'm dealing with 4, 28, and 24. What do those numbers have in common? All of them are divisible by 4. I'm going to make it easier for myself. If you notice that numbers are divisible, all divisible, I can divide everything by that 4. So what this happens is this 4 that becomes 1. So now I have x squared minus 7x plus 6 equals 0. So now it's a lot easier. Now I don't have a 1 in there. So now I just look at the factors of 6. What multiplies to 6? Well, 6 and 1 and 2 and 3. Which ones are going to add up to negative 7? Well, if I change both those to negative, that becomes negative 7. So if I remember that trick back then, when the A is 1 here, when there's just a 1 there, I can skip right to my answer, where it's going to be x minus 6, x minus 1 equals 0. Or I can go through the steps of replacing, factoring by grouping. So now I split these, and I go, okay, x minus 6 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, so x has to be 6, or x has to be 1. So what does that mean in context of the problem? Which one of these works? Because the question is asking me, find the new dimensions of the rectangle. I have 2 results. This is my dimensions of my rectangle. I have 2 results. Which one can it be? That's when I plug it in. So, I have a rectangle that's 6 minus 2x and 8 minus 2x. So, if I take this x equals 6 and I plug it in for x, I would get 6 minus 2 times 6. Well, 6 minus 2 times 6 is 6 minus 12. That comes out to be negative 6 for this length of the side. That makes no sense in the problem because I'm dealing with length of a rectangle. That makes no sense. So this x equals 6 isn't an answer to my problem. But if I take that same result, same side, and plug in 1, 6 minus 2 times 1, well, that's 4. So my length here is going to be 4 on the width. If I take that x equals 1 and plug it in here, I'll get x minus 2 times 1, which comes out to be 6. So my dimensions are 6 by 4. Does that fit in the problem? Yeah. Area is 24 square inches. So if this side's 6, this side's 4, length times width, 6 times 4 is 24. That checks out. So the trick with any word problem is sometimes you have to FOIL and then factor. Okay. Now you can always do all the steps if you wanted to and multiply the 4 times 24, figure out which factors add up to negative 28, and you're going to get the same result in the end. It's just a little bit harder, a little bit more time consuming. Please complete the practice problems on this and come in with any questions that you have. Thank you.